The truth about female interest. Female desire is not logical, it is emotional. A woman doesn't decide based on cold reasoning, objective comparisons, or lists of qualities you present. She feels, perceives energy, and responds to posture, security, and consistency. A man who believes he can conquer only with pretty words, compliments, or detailed explanations ignores the invisible force that governs attraction, the perception of masculine energy.
True power lies in projecting presence, control, and authenticity from the first contact. A woman evaluates much more by the feeling you transmit than by what you say. She observes subtleties, posture, calmness, security, emotional rhythm. Each gesture, each word, and each silent choice combine to create an impression of strength or weakness. The man who understands this knows that her interest is the result of consistency and projection of energy, and not of explicit effort to please.
Many men get lost at this stage, reacting with anxiety or trying to explain themselves, beg for attention, or seek approval. This behavior instantly destroys attraction because it demonstrates neediness and insecurity. Masculine energy cannot be sold, begged for, or forced. It must be projected and maintained as an invisible shield that awakens fascination and curiosity. Before we proceed, write your age and city in the comments. This is more than a gesture of interaction. It is a sign of awareness, readiness, and discipline. And if you are not yet subscribed, do so now. Subscription is a silent pact, a commitment to strategic masculine posture and energy. The man who understands female interest understands that the battle begins in perception and energy, and that words, compliments, or haste will never replace posture, presence, and emotional security. Why most men are ignored. Most men are ignored because they act needy and constantly seek approval. They believe that gaining attention requires explicit effort, incessant messages, exaggerated compliments, or attempts to impress. Each gesture aimed at pleasing reveals fragility, anxiety, and emotional dependence, destroying attraction even before generating curiosity. The man who understands the game knows that being interesting is not a function of what he says, but of the energy he projects. When the posture is weak, the confidence unstable, and the emotion poorly controlled, the woman perceives unconsciously that he is not a point of security or stability. She feels that his energy is unbalanced and automatically reduces interest, ignoring superficial efforts that do not carry consistency or real presence. The effect of neediness is devastating. Excessive messages, urgency in responses, need for approval, and anxiety create a pattern of submission that weakens psychological dominance and reduces fascination. Each attempt to please or manipulate results increases the perception of fragility, making it impossible to awaken genuine desire. Ask yourself, how many times have you been ignored not for lack of qualities, but for transmitting insecurity or a need for validation? How many opportunities were lost for not realizing that energy, posture, and silent dominance are what really generate attraction? The second warning is clear. Men who seek approval or react impulsively lose power before the interaction even begins. The confident man, on the other hand, projects masculine energy, maintains posture, and attracts interest naturally, creating curiosity and desire without having to chase or beg. The power of energy and masculine presence. What you transmit is more important than what you say. Words alone do not conquer, do not seduce, and do not generate real fascination. Masculine energy, firm posture, and consistent presence are invisible forces that directly impact female interest. A simple message sent by a secure man carries weight, while long and anxious texts from someone seeking approval are lost in the perception of fragility. Masculine presence is perceived almost intuitively. She reads posture, emotional rhythm, and energy. Inner security manifests in calmness, confidence, and control, creating natural magnetism. A man who maintains constant energy, even in the face of setbacks or tests, projects strength effortlessly. The silent presence conveys a powerful message. I don't need to chase. I don't need to beg. I am in control of the interaction. Many men ignore this power. They believe that attraction depends on verbal creativity or compliments, when in reality, it all starts with energy, posture, and projection of emotional security. Each gesture, pause, or response choice reinforces dominance or delivers vulnerability. The difference between being remembered or forgotten lies in the invisible impact of the energy you transmit, not in the number of words you send. Ask yourself, how many times have you noticed that, even with interesting phrases, the lack of presence or consistent energy reduced interest? The man who understands this dynamic transforms each interaction into an opportunity for fascination, creating desire and respect without having to expose himself emotionally or force a connection. The third warning is clear. Masculine energy and presence are invisible weapons that define attraction and dominance, while anxiety, haste, or attempts to please instantly reduce authority and magnetism. How to generate curiosity and desire without forcing anything. Female curiosity is not conquered by insistence, pressure, or excess information. It is born when a man creates space, maintains a firm posture, and transmits consistent energy, balancing presence with mystery. The secret lies in strategic patience and calculated unpredictability. You don't need to chase or force reactions, just allow interest to develop naturally. A woman observes patterns, perceives security, and reacts to masculine energy. A man who maintains internal control, responds with balance, and projects dominance creates instant curiosity. Momentary detachment, a thoughtful response, and the absence of need are strategic tools that increase desire, strengthen fascination, and generate genuine attraction. Many men fail because they confuse insistence with interest. They believe that repeating messages or pressing for responses awakens attention, but in reality, it reveals anxiety and weakness. The true power lies in controlling the rhythm of the interaction, maintaining posture, and leaving space for the woman to want to approach.
Each conscious gesture reinforces emotional security. Each calculated response maintains authority and magnetism. Ask yourself, how many times has anxiety or haste ruined an opportunity to awaken genuine interest? How many times has a woman responded positively when you remained calm, confident, and strategic? The man who understands this logic transforms detachments and tests into opportunities, cultivating desire without having to manipulate or chase.
The fourth warning is clear. Curiosity and desire arise when you maintain posture, energy, and strategic rhythm, without forcing the interaction or revealing need. Internal dominance generates fascination, attraction, and psychological power, and the woman approaches naturally, motivated by the magnetism you project. What really awakens interest in a woman? Emotional security is the most attractive factor for a woman. It's not about wealth, status, or superficial skills. It's about consistency, masculine energy, and internal control. She feels, even unconsciously, whether you are stable, secure, and reliable. Each gesture, pause, or message transmits signals that indicate strength or fragility. The man who maintains balance, even in the face of tests or setbacks, is perceived as someone who deserves attention, respect, and genuine interest. The man who understands this projects a silent presence. He doesn't need to force closeness, explain intentions, or seek approval. He maintains a firm posture, consistent rhythm, and controlled energy. This type of emotional security awakens curiosity and desire, creating natural magnetism. She perceives autonomy, control, and confidence, and that's what keeps attention and interest alive, even when it seems distant. True attraction does not depend on the number of words or attempts to please. It depends on the projection of internal strength, emotional dominance, and strategic posture. Each conscious decision, each deliberate gesture, and each demonstration of emotional control reinforce psychological authority. The woman reacts to energy, not to literal content, and this perception defines interest and attraction from the first moments. Ask yourself, how many times have you been ignored or lost interest for not projecting emotional security? How many opportunities were lost because you gave in to the impulse to please or demonstrated anxiety? The man who understands this dynamic transforms energy, posture, and presence into psychological power, creating fascination and desire naturally. The fifth warning is clear. Emotional security and internal control are what really awaken interest, while anxiety, haste, or the need for approval instantly diminish power and attraction. The signs that she is testing your posture, Each action of the woman, from late responses to subtle attention tests, is a silent assessment of the man's posture. She tests emotional stability, confidence, and psychological dominance to determine if it is worth approaching. The man who does not perceive these signs reacts with anxiety or attempts to manipulate, weakening presence and authority. The strategic man, on the other hand, correctly interprets these signs and projects consistent energy, transmitting security without having to pressure. The woman's invisible test is subtle but powerful. Each comment, each setback, or provocation is observed and felt. Her perception is not limited to words. It is energy, posture, and confidence perceived instinctively. The man who maintains emotional control and strategic posture reinforces magnetism, awakens fascination, and creates expectation. She feels authority and stability, increasing interest without the need for insistence or pressure. Many men confuse testing with disinterest and react impulsively. Each anxious gesture reveals fragility, reduces respect, and destroys attraction. The man who observes, adjusts rhythm, and maintains a silent posture transforms each test into an opportunity to strengthen presence, energy, and psychological power. He understands that her detachment or challenging behavior is not rejection, but a natural tool to measure his strength and stability. Ask yourself, how many times have you responded poorly to subtle tests and missed an opportunity to generate fascination? How many times has anxiety or impulsive reaction compromised authority and magnetism? The man who masters these signs maintains posture, energy, and control, transforming female evaluation into a strategic advantage. The sixth warning is clear. Recognizing and interpreting posture tests is essential to consolidate control, fascination, and authority, while emotional reaction compromises power and interest from the beginning of the interaction. How to react when she seems uninterested. When a woman demonstrates detachment or momentary indifference, many men fall into the trap of despair. They send excessive messages, seek explanations, or try to force interaction. This reaction not only reveals weakness, but destroys all the attraction built up until then. The strategic man understands that apparent disinterest is not rejection. It is a silent test that measures emotional stability and psychological dominance. The correct way to react is by maintaining a firm posture, internal control, and consistent energy. He observes, adjusts rhythm, maintains lightness and confidence without giving in to anxiety. Each action or word must reinforce presence, not transmit need. It is the balance between showing interest and preserving autonomy that generates curiosity, fascination, and respect. She feels emotional security and perceives silent authority, increasing attraction without direct effort. The disciplined man transforms each moment of apparent disinterest into an opportunity. He understands behavior patterns, identifies tests, and acts strategically. Patience, calculated silence, and consistency of energy make female detachment an ally, not an obstacle. He doesn't force anything, but maintains invisible dominance of the interaction, elevating perceived value and magnetism. Ask yourself, how many times have you reacted anxiously in the face of apparent disinterest and lost authority? How many opportunities were wasted for not maintaining energy and posture? The man who understands this dynamic uses strategic patience, firm posture, and emotional control to transform disinterest into growing fascination and desire. The seventh warning is clear. When she seems uninterested, posture, energy, and patience are silent weapons that maintain control, fascination, and attraction, while anxiety and despair compromise authority immediately. The difference between insisting and showing value. Insistence and demonstration of value are distinct concepts, and understanding them is essential to generate interest without losing authority. Insisting too much reveals neediness, anxiety, and a need for approval. Showing value projects security, energy, and consistent posture. The strategic man knows that attraction is born from the perception of internal strength, not from the number of messages sent or attempts to please. Showing value is acting with purpose, maintaining presence, communicating confidence, and projecting natural masculine energy. It is not manipulation or arrogance. It is emotional control allied with mental discipline. Each gesture, response, or silence must reinforce authority and magnetism, while insistence without strategy instantly reduces power and interest. The difference between the common man and the confident man lies in consistency. The confident man projects value effortlessly, maintains emotional rhythm, and understands that the woman responds more to energy than to the literal content of the words. He creates expectation, fascination, and desire through posture and psychological dominance, while the common man gets lost in the need for validation and approval. Ask yourself, how many times have you confused insistence with value, losing attraction and respect? How many times has the anxiety of obtaining an immediate response weakened authority and posture? The disciplined man perceives that showing value with energy, posture, and consistency is more powerful than insisting on being noticed, transforming interactions into genuine fascination. The eighth warning is clear. The balance between presence, energy, and perceived value determines whether you maintain control and fascination, while insistence and anxiety undermine psychological power and authority from the first contact. What separates the common man from the confident man? What differentiates the common man from the confident man is not appearance, wealth, or superficial skills, but mental discipline, emotional stability, and internal dominance. The common man reacts, despairs, seeks approval, and lets himself be led by impulses. The confident man observes, maintains control, projects security, and conducts each interaction without needing external validation. Confidence is not arrogance. It is constant energy, firm posture, and the ability to act strategically in the face of invisible tests. Each gesture of the confident man reinforces perceived value, genuine interest, and natural respect. He understands that the woman perceives energy before words, and that the consistency of posture is more powerful than any verbal argument. The common man gets lost in anxiety, sends excessive messages, tries to please or justify actions. This reveals fragility, diminishes magnetism, and creates a perception of instant weakness. The confident man maintains emotional rhythm, responds with security, and uses strategic silence when necessary. He transforms the invisible game into terrain in his favor, creating fascination and attraction without needing to chase or pressure. Ask yourself, how many times have you noticed that emotional lack of control reduced attraction and respect? How many opportunities for fascination were lost by reacting instead of conducting? The confident man projects silent dominance, strategic patience, and constant presence, consolidating value, interest, and natural magnetism. The ninth warning is clear. Mental discipline, emotional stability, and internal dominance separate the common man from the confident man, determining whether he generates fascination and respect, or loses authority and psychological power, even before the first meaningful contact. When you understand the game, you don't need to chase. Understanding the invisible game of female attraction transforms confusion into strategy and desire into control. The man who masters posture, energy, and rhythm does not chase, does not beg, and does not lose authority. He maintains presence, observes signs, adjusts rhythm, and projects silent confidence that awakens curiosity and genuine fascination. Strategic patience and emotional control are invisible weapons that consolidate psychological power. Leave the word control in the comments. More than symbolic, this gesture is a commitment to discipline, energy, and internal dominance. Each conscious choice strengthens your emotional fortress. Each resistance to impulses destroys anxiety and increases fascination. Subscribing to the channel is not just a click, it is a seal of commitment to continuous learning and practical application of strategies of masculine presence. Final reflection. The difference between losing or conquering attention and respect lies in the posture, rhythm, and energy you project. The man who understands the game dominates interactions without apparent effort, generates true attraction, and maintains invisible control over each movement. Silence, patience, and strategic posture are your swords. Constant energy and firm presence are your shield. Stay on the screen. The next video is already appearing, and the war continues.